Hi, I'm Terri Tucker, and this is the Tales of Mountain Creek Ranch. So all month long, we've been teasing the concept of bubbles up, and what in the world does it mean? So I have to give you a little background. So I heard the song Bubbles Up by Jimmy Buffett, and I was actually out on the lake. I was floating in one of the floaties, and I was looking out, and all these bubbles were coming up around me. And I was like, you know what? I know there's something under those bubbles. I know there has to be a turtle under there somewhere, or a big old catfish, or something has disturbed the gravel underneath and the bubbles are coming up. And then I heard the song at the same time, and I really started listening to the lyrics. And then I did a deep dive through ChatGPT, of course, to figure out what in the world Jimmy Buffett was thinking when he wrote the lyrics to that song. So where does the phrase bubbles up come from? The idea of bubbles up comes from a diving analogy that sometimes when you're diving, especially in Jimmy Buffett waters, when you're out in absolutely beautiful, crystal clear blue water, sometimes you don't know which end is up. You might be swimming down, thinking that down is up because you have no anything in that deep, deep water that tells you. There's no coral that I can see. There's no sky that I can see, so I don't really know which way's up. I could even be swimming sideways each direction thinking that I'm actually going up. But the one surefire thing for divers is just stop, take a breath, let your regulator in your mouthpiece release a little air, and watch where the bubbles go. And the bubbles always go up. So if I get disoriented, if I get lost along the way, I just follow those bubbles up, and that tells me which way is up. So Jimmy wrote lyrics to that effect, bubbles up, as one of his last songs. He knew he was going to die. He knew he was going to leave his fans, and he just wanted to give a message to his fans. And that message was, hey guys, always follow bubbles up. So I just wanted to read some of the lyrics to you because I think he did such a good job sending a message to his fans. When this world starts a reeling from that pressure drop feeling, we're just treading water each day. There's a way to feel better. There's a way to feel better. Be well set to weather the storms till the sun shines again. When your compass is spinning and you're lost on the way like a leaf in the wind, friend, hear me when I say, bubbles up. They will point you towards home. No matter how deep or how far you roam, they will show you the surface, the plot, and the purpose. So when the journey gets long, just know that you are loved. There is light above, and the joy's always enough. Bubbles up. So how in the world did this song speak to me from a leadership standpoint and something that I wanted to share on Tales? As leaders in cultures, we can get on our hamster wheels, we can go through our days, we can get hung up on how many calls I have today, what my calendar tells me I have to do, what my to-do list is. Or, as leaders, we can watch the bubbles. We can have our eyes set on where am I? And where are the bubbles going? And which way is up? And what are the bubbles telling me? If I've got bubbles in my culture, something is going on that's causing those bubbles. So follow the bubbles is a great leadership principle. We just have to know what the bubbles are telling us. So when things are complicated in our cultures, we cannot guess which way is up. We have to be knowledgeable about which way is up. So we have to look for the bubbles and see where they're going so we can lead our teams up from the depths to the light to where the bubbles are going. So here at the ranch, there are always bubbles. And great ranchers like Phil and Kim Malujan, like Goober, like Renee, they are constantly watching these indicators or these bubbles at the ranch. Like if a horse lays down perpetually too long, if a horse doesn't get up, That's a bubble, man. We got to go figure out what's going on. There's a bubble. Or these chickens that are making all this noise here during my video. That rooster that just won't quit crowing. Something's up. Something's close to the chicken house. Something's causing those chickens to be squawking, that rooster to be howling. We got to go figure out what in the world's causing that crow. So those are bubbles. Another example of bubbles might be guests that come here to the ranch. Like we did in our teaser of the video this month. We said our guests wanted more space than we had to offer, so the Malugians decided to build the nest. So that was a bubble, the guests saying, hey. Renee watches bubbles all the time. What are guests eating? What are they not eating? What do they like? What do they don't like? Those are bubbles. So in your business, what are bubbles? Maybe a repeat guest has all of a sudden quit coming. Maybe an employee starts quietly quitting and we're watching their engagement completely go away. Maybe all of a sudden we got a windfall of some type of business that we weren't expecting and we're like, where did that come from? Maybe we should be looking at what was the cause. The bubble of the windfall is telling us that there was a source somewhere. Maybe we have higher turnover, voluntary turnover all of a sudden. Maybe we had several people quit out of the blue. What were the bubbles telling us? So great leaders watch the bubbles. So in this series, what we're teaching you is how to watch the bubbles. And then we will share what to do when it's time to take action. When the learning and the watching is over, when do I move? So there are lazy leaders out there. And lazy leaders really stop at surface problems. They see something that's happening on the surface and they say, oh, we can't have that happen. But really great leaders get in and dig. They watch the bubbles, they get down in the water, they find out what is the source of the bubbles, and they watch the direction the bubbles are going. And then they use that through learning to figure out how to solve or take advantage of whatever the source of those bubbles are. So what might be some examples of bubbles that would be in your culture today? Might be a broken process. There might be a process that's happening in your culture that's really causing a lot of extenuating problems that come out of it. So we got to get into the process and we got to figure out what is happening. An example of that might be, I work with the recruiting team at Phoenix Home Care and Hospice, and we buy recruiting platforms. Well, instead of just looking globally at all the recruiting platforms we have and what the ROI is on the global use of platforms, we can get in, follow the bubbles, and say which one of those platforms is actually bubbling up the most applicants. That's where we want to go. We want to follow the bubbles to which recruiting platform is causing the most applications to be caused. So we'll go to be generated. So we'll go to that platform and say, what are we doing on that platform and where is that platform reaching to get us the biggest bang for our buck, basically. And then looking at other platforms going, you know what, they're not generating anything. Is that on us? Meaning maybe how we're putting verbiage in there, or is that on the platform itself? Let's follow the process. Let's follow the bubbles and see if there's a broken process somewhere along the line. Another example of a great bubble might be all of a sudden an associate wakes up and is really doing great work. Maybe you have a salesman that all of a sudden 1 month is just really kicking it. Do I just live on the surface of that and go, oh yeah, that salesman's really having a great month? Or do we get in and look at the bubbles he or she is causing and saying, why are they having such a great month? What have they changed? How have they adapted what they're doing to create different results? The third one's more subtle, but definitely producing bubbles. And it might be that a subculture is growing, a subculture of positivity or negativity. Could be a good subculture, could be a bad one. But I'm seeing a niche form. I'm seeing a group of people bond together that haven't bonded before. I'm seeing some rumblings or some movement. What's happening there? So I need to look and to see what are the bubbles telling me. So the first part of our series this month is really about how to watch for the bubbles. So I've got some tips. I'm using my notes. Get your notes out and we can learn together. And again, remember, when you watch these tails, the best way to watch them is as a learner who's going to turn around and teach. You can download this video. You can take it to your teams. You can be the facilitator of learning in your stand-ups and with your teams. Take this material and use it as a coach. And then you find yourself one day waking up going, I'm a pretty good leader. All right, so the first thing in how to watch the bubbles is really to listen for repeated comments. The rule of thumb, honestly, is 5. If I've heard something 5 times, it's probably true. That is a big old bubble that's bursting at the surface. It's probably true. I need to listen and see if I can hear 5 times. Watch behaviors is number 2. So do I have combusting collaboration happening without me? So do I have team members that are reaching out and working with each other, not because it's direction from me, but because it's actually happening? So watch behaviors. Or the opposite of collaboration, do I see silos forming? Are silos coming up and people not playing with each other? Those are bubbles I need to pay attention to. Voluntary turnover is a huge behavior where people are going, I just need to leave. I got a job offer down the street and yeah, they're going to pay me $2 more an hour. Yeah, that's not something's causing that. That's causing that person to leave. That's not just price related. Okay, small changes. Notice is step number 3. Notice individual small changes. So even with one associate, one employee on your team, if you notice a little nuanced change, they're coming in a few minutes later than they normally do. Small changes, that's bubbles. They're leaving 3 to 5 minutes earlier than they normally would leave. That's small changes. You're having a stand up and you notice that a face is acting a little different than it's ever acted before. Maybe somebody's kind of adopting a little RBF going on. That would be a small change that I haven't seen before. So watching those changes happen. And then stay close to the front line. The group that is closest to the customer, that's our 4th step. Get with that group, the group that is serving your most valuable people, your customers. Get closest to that front line. Listen to the chatter. Live among them. Hang out in your lobbies. Hang out in your break rooms and hear what is actually happening at the front line level. And then measure what matters is the 5th action of how do I watch bubbles. What are you measuring? Are you measuring things that truly matter? At Phoenix Home Care and Hospice, we measure our quality scores all the time through our public relations office, sends out surveys to our current customers. We are constantly looking at shifts, teeny tiny shifts in our quality scores. We don't wait until we have a 10% decline or a 10% advantage. We measure what matters because we can get in there in the thick of thin things and try and fix it. So make sure that you're measuring what matters, not measuring things that, 3 months ago we got this score. Measure in real time and measure so you can do something about it in the moment. And then lastly, and probably my favorite, the 6th step of how do I watch bubbles is ask why one more time. Why is your best friend. Asking why one more time is always good practice. Why did this happen? Why did they leave? Why did they come? Why did we get this money? Why did we lose this money? Asking why one more time is a great bubble chaser among our leaders. So after I learn how to watch the bubbles, when do I stop watching and learning and start acting? And that's always the toughest question for a leader is, I know all this stuff now, when do I start to actually get with it and start leading and doing and maybe even cross over into managing because of what I learned? So here's the answer. When the risk increases. So when the bubbles start to look like they could freaking aerate a whole entire pond, it's really disrupting my culture. when the risk of just sitting and watching and continually learning becomes greater than the risk of taking action, that's when I need to start doing something. So when I'm just sitting around learning and I'm watching bubbles, I'm going, yeah, I know that's happening. Yeah, I know that's happening. Yeah, I know that's happening. But I'm not doing anything about it. At that point, I've really got to stop and I've got to take action and I've got to do something about it. So I've got kind of a little cheat sheet to say when it's time to act, it's because I can answer these 3 questions. I know the answers to them. So question number 1 is, what is happening? So I know what is happening. I've watched the bubbles, I've followed them, I know what the source of them is, I know what's happening here at the pond. It might be a big old catfish down there, it might be a little bluegill up towards the surface with a small bubble, or it might be a great big catfish on the bottom. It might be something rumbling in the earth that's caused the gravel to move. We might be having an earthquake. So I know what is happening. I know the answer to that. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, why is it happening? So I know that the earth is rumbling. Why is it rumbling? Oh, we're having an earthquake. Okay, I've answered why. Or, oh, it's a great big old catfish that's, flipping his tail around down there. I've gone down, I've looked, and I know what is happening, and I know why it's happening. So that's 1 and 2. And then the third, I know what I'm trying to create. I know what the outcome is that I need to happen. I either need to let that catfish lay its eggs, I need to take cover because we're having an earthquake, I need to get out in an open space, something. I need to know what the outcome is that I'm trying to create. So let's be more realistic here. I know what is happening. Silos are being created in my culture. Why is it happening? Because I've got 2 people that aren't getting along. What is the outcome I'm trying to create? I'm trying to create a synergistic sharing of knowledge and information and skills between the 2 silos. I'm trying to break the silos down. When I know the answer to those 3 questions, again, what is happening, why is it happening, and what is the outcome I'm trying to achieve? That's when it's time for me as a bubble watcher to quit watching and to quit learning and to start doing. That's when I know it's time. So we know that in diving, the bubbles are going to show us the way up. We know that if we get disoriented in diving, we just follow the bubbles and we go to the light. We know that. In leadership, bubbles are the signals that tell us the truth. Great leaders don't just watch and listen to noise. They seek the truth. The bubbles in our culture are truth. And we have to find a way to get very good at watching them, learning from them, and taking action because of them. It's always bubbles up as leaders. Curiosity leads you to the truth. Courage turns the truth into action. Action creates improved results. And it all starts with bubbles up, my friend. There is always a way up.